Welcome back to another episode of Deserts of Kharak lore. In case you're new to this channel, this will be the third episode in this series. The first two episodes, I covered the history of Kharak and the major Kiithid, as well as the events leading up to the campaign in Deserts of Kharak. Now in this episode, we are going to take a look at the history of Kiith Soban, as well as some of the events following the Deserts of Kharak campaign that would lead up to the discovery of the Khaaneph. So, without further ado, let's jump in. The origins of Kiith Soban date back to the tumultuous years leading up to the Heresy Wars. Some 5 decades prior to the notorious Sadim proclamation that would ignite that bloody age, in the year 416, the Grey Brotherhood was born. During these times, smaller Kiith survived by becoming vassal to larger, more powerful Kiith, paying tribute to their masters in return for the protection of the larger Kiith's army. Though the origins of the Grey Brotherhood are somewhat hazy, it is known that 2 vassal Kiith, largely farmers and tradesmen, which held lands along the Second Sea, were invaded by a much larger neighboring Kiith. The vassals fought back furiously, defending their homes and families with desperate strength, managing even to kill a handful of the invading soldiers. Although they had already been forced to surrender, the invaders punished the survivors brutally, violating many basic taboos in society. All of the children were slaughtered, and the leader of every family, man or woman, was slain. The survivors were driven from their holdings and fled across the sparkling desert to carry news of these atrocities to their Kiith Sa. The leader of this group of fleeing survivors was a man named Soban, later known as Soban the Red. He recounted to his Kiith Sa the horrors the neighboring Kiith had committed against his people, demanding vengeance and offering to personally lead the counterattack. Soban's Kiith Sa, however, fearing the repercussion of attacking a larger and stronger Kiith, refused to attack the invading soldiers. Worse still, the smaller Kiith became vassal to the larger, swearing allegiance to the murderers. Upon hearing of this unthinkable act of cowardice and betrayal, Soban tore the colors of his Kiith from his body in shame. His followers did the same, abandoning their Kiith completely. This was a gesture unheard of at the time, especially coming as it did from landless men and women. Then and there, Soban declared that the word Kiith was meaningless, when any Kiith Sa could turn a deaf ear to the blood of children crying from the ground. He vowed never again to belong to any false Kiith. The only Kiith which deserved the word was the Kiith of the Spirit, the brotherhood of like mind and shared ambitions. Soban and his followers that day took a new color, a deep and vivid red, the color of blood flowing from the heart. Though few in number, their first act as a Kiith was a ruthless counterattack on their former lands. Their former homes were put to the torch, everything was razed to the ground, and every invader killed in ways that gave Soban a fearsome reputation for years to come. The Soban became an entirely martial Kiith from that day forward, and though there were many other warrior Kiithid of the day, only the Soban were completely landless and existed purely as mercenaries. As the years passed, a peculiar set of rituals developed among them. To this day, the Soban are completely devoid of standard family groupings. Marriage is not permitted among their ranks, and there is no such thing as a Sobani child. While Sobani males and females are permitted to do as they please, children born from Soban parents are left with other Kiith, or the parents are made to leave Kiith Soban in order to raise them. Any Kushan is accepted into Soban ranks, provided they honor the fierce loyalty that is Soban code. Before taking the Red, as it is called, a prospective member must repeat the same ritual performed by Soban the Red all those years ago. All other Kiith ties must be renounced, their colors forcibly ripped from the body in a powerful gesture of negation. For centuries, Kiith Soban took part in every military conflict on the planet, and their skills as soldiers and commanders is highly prized. As such, the Soban never lack for money or influence. Following the Nabal intervention and the formation of the Northern Coalition, Kiith Soban entered into a permanent alliance with Kiith Nabal, and the Soban forces have become the backbone of the coalition's military might. Virtually all modern-day officers are trained at Soban-run military academies. In recent years, several crucial military actions can be attributed to Kiith Soban. On the first night of 1074 KDS, shortly after the construction of the Stormbreaker Wall, 10,000 Galzian soldiers hit the fort at the main gate that guards the interior access routes to the northern lands. Though heavily entrenched, only 500 warriors held the gate, and as night passed, they were whittled away. As dawn broke, the fighting had entered the main gates, and the last of the Sidim legionaries fighting and dying side by side with their coalition allies. When the last of the Galzian reserves had been called into the breached gate, 3 words echoed out of the comm towers: "Bring the red." And with that, 2 full legions of Soban mercenaries rose up from the desert floor. Surrounded by the most well-trained and well-equipped military force on the planet, the Galzian invaders were cut down to a man, and the coalition was saved. In 1115 KDS, 5 years after the Capisi expedition secured the Kartoba site, a Soban combat group would make a discovery that would cause a dramatic shift in the dynamic of power on Kharak. Northern Command had received intelligence reports of Galcian movements along the Tarsus line, east of Tyr, and dispatched a Soban command carrier to Firebase Krill, situated within the Fayern Gorge, to outflank and engage the Galcian position. Upon entering the abandoned outpost, the Soban fleets had escorts, which were decimated after they located the main Galcian battle group, barely having enough time to relay coordinates. Having confirmed the position of the Galcian force, the main Soban fleet moved to engage. Deploying newly developed combat technology in the form of targeting jammers and armed logistics modules, the Galcian force was disabled and decimated by focused railgun fire. Having destroyed the main Galcian force, the Soban fleet moved to engage the carrier. A fierce battle ensued, and as the smoke began to clear the battlefield, the Soban position came under fire from an unknown enemy. A withering hail of missile fire rained down on the Soban fleet, forcing them to retreat from the battlefield. And at the very edge of sensor range, 2 carriers and multiple cruisers of unknown configuration. The events of the Krill engagement have confirmed what has been speculated for nearly a century, that there is another force operating in the deep desert, one which the Coalition knows almost nothing about. The first evidence for the existence of this group was presented to the Coalition in 1024 by a renowned Manan cryptographer named Masar. Masar had compiled a report based on broken Galcian codes, cross-referencing 500 confirmed Coalition Galcian engagements against a further 150 reports from raids on Galcian communities and small action casualty reports that had no correlation to any known Coalition military action. And in all 150 incidents, the term Khaaneph was used. Though his report was initially dismissed, his superiors suggesting that he had been unduly influenced by his Manani heritage and the old traveler's tales of monsters that rode with the storms. Masar, however, pressed the matter. He firmly believed that there was evidence that there was another hostile force operating in the wastes, and that the Galcian knew who they were. Finally, in 1026, Masar was put in charge of an intelligence task force dedicated to answering this question. What they eventually found was truly disturbing. The people of Kharak are no strangers to the ravages of war, its costs, the loss of life and lands. But there is one price that very few scholars are comfortable talking about: the loss of entire peoples to the wastes, not only in body, but in mind and spirit. Some families did not just abandon their land and society, but left behind all faith in civilization and rule of law. During the darkest days of the Sidim dogma, when entire Kiithid were declared Griddidim, and forced from their holdings, many family groups simply picked up whatever supplies they could and fled. Not all of these Grididim had been assimilated by larger Kiith or destroyed, however. Many struck out on their own and many died, but some didn't. They survived, first by looting the wreckage left after battles, and later by preying on each other. To be among them was to have no goal except survival, no belief past the need to remain alive, and no loyalty but to oneself. They lived on in the empty places where the major powers could not for hundreds of years after the Heresy Wars. While the civilized world moved on and reveled in the Age of Reason, they massacred small settlements and ambushed unwary caravans, taking everything. Every scrap of cloth and metal could be used to keep a machine working, every child could be brought up a warrior, and every corpse was food and raw materials. The people of Kharak had been breeding monsters for hundreds of years without ever noticing them, just on the edges of their society. But the Galcian took note, for they were preyed on more often and more openly than any other. In the Galcian dialect, the coalition Kiithid are named Fagan, which roughly translates to blind followers of a false god. The Galcian consider coalition Kiithid to be deluded and dangerously misled, but they are still seen as believers. They see science and logic as just another set of deities, and in their minds, the coalition are an enemy that can still be redeemed if they could simply grasp the true path to redemption. The Khaaneph, something else altogether. Derived from a very ancient word, Khaaneph literally means godless, a thing the Galcian mind can barely comprehend. To be Khaaneph is to believe in nothing. No god, no law, no justice, no Kiith. To the Galcian, a Khaaneph is a person with the soul of a beast that has severed their ties to humanity. The Khaaneph roam the wastes, where even the boldest raider would fear to go. And as the climate grows more harsh, and war threatens every civilized land, the Khaaneph have only grown in strength. Raiding fleets have been photographed by recon aircraft racing along the edge of storms, and their attacks grow ever more bold with each passing day. With the Khaaneph now striking as far north as Firebase Krill, there can be no doubt that the Coalition military will have to engage this new enemy. An enemy as ruthless and cunning as any they have ever known. So that brings episode 3 to a close. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Please let me know what you think in the comments. I'm pretty excited to bring this video to you guys. I've been working on it for quite some time. So let me know what you thought in the comments. Leave a like if you enjoyed this video. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't yet done so. And I will see you for the next video.